Hello everyone. How are we doing tonight? Hello Mixer. Give you my normal intro here. Doing well, got a ton of cabbage from when I did coleslaw the other night. And so we're gonna use that up and make ourselves a big batch of soup for the rest of the week. We got some chili beans. Really think white beans would probably be the best for this, but I have chili beans, and so I didn't feel like going out and getting white beans just for the recipe tonight. But we're gonna coat these with our batch of pork stock made last week. See how much we need. Probably going to use all this. Quite thick. Pretty much gelled. Actually, this one's actually looking a little bit thinner than the first one I opened. Yeah, more than enough there to cover, but I'm going to do a bit more here with water. Just use the same bag. Sort of rinses out the bag at the same time as using it to fill the pan. And that's hot tap water, so it's already breaking down that gelling a little bit. Okay, we'll go with that. And so we'll put that on the stove here to start and get that simmering. I mean, you can see how concentrated that stock turned out just by seeing how dark. I mean, I can't even go an inch in there without becoming completely disappearing, which is not really what you want for a stock. You don't want a stock to be that thick. That's more like sauce level there. It's not thick like a sauce, but it's sauce-like level there as far as darkness. A stock, while it's not going to be perfectly clean, should be easily cleanable using a raft to make it crystal clear like a consomme. So it should be, like one step away from being clear. It's a little bit more concentrated. Thank you for the host, Miss Tags. So we got our beans on now. Let's get our veggies prepped. We've got purple and green cabbage kicking around still from when we made the coleslaw. And we'll do a much rougher cut, do like a 1-inch cube here. Well, as close as you can do to a cube with a thick round object, but awesome. Thank you for the host, Mr. Tags. Yeah, I'm not liking the way this outer leaf looks. We'll get rid of him. And let's do this again down the center. No worries. Yeah, why not? Alright, so I actually think I'm going to switch this guy over to the second burner here. And move these over here. And use the big pot here. The big pot. Get that warming up while we're working on some of our other veg here. We got some carrot, got some onion. We got some oyster mushrooms. We'll just do half moons here with the carrot. The other half didn't want to cooperate, so I couldn't cut them together. So we got that up to a quick boil here, or a quick simmer at least. I turn that down to a light boil temp and just allow that to hang out for a while. Now let's grab one more. Oh, one thing I can get going here other than this, let's do the veggies first. Do want to get our ground pork mixed up a little bit ahead of time so it has a little time to take on the flavors. And a little bit of yellow onion kicking around. Yep. That's gonna go another layer deep. How do I want to do this today? Ginger's going to be for inside the wontons. Carrots and onions and veggies so far have all been for the cabbage soup. Just sort of making that distinction so that you know which is what going where. So we'll have oyster mushrooms in both of them here, which is next after ginger and garlic. I like cutting my ginger against the grain so it's tender, but I sort of like making somewhat larger pieces of ginger so that you know it's there. Ginger works so great in the background, but it's also great if you get that, or at least I think it's great if you get that occasional little punch of ginger above and beyond. Oops. Sure, quick cut away the center core there. Leave ourselves with most of the mushrooms here and some of the stems, but mostly just the, I don't know, what's the proper term for that when it comes to an oyster mushroom? I mean, probably should, but I know on the other one, on like button mushrooms, it's the mushroom cap, but these aren't really caps. So this is the mushrooms we're going to put in with the soup. And these ones are going to go in with the pork, sort of supplement how much meat you're using. Can sort of think of the mushrooms as a good substitute for the same textures you get from at least with the oyster mushrooms, I think they're a good substitute for the texture you get from fat in like a steak or meat. So they're considerably cheaper, obviously, than meat, but they're still expensive compared to veggies. I'm also going to do some Americanization here. Oh, no worries, Casper. Thanks for stopping by. For a couple of days, for I think 2 weeks. Love to save them for longer, but they don't do that because I'm not a partner. I'm also saving my VOD so one day I can maybe make YouTube vids or something like that out of them, but editing really isn't my thing. I'd probably have to get someone to do it. I'd be capable of doing it. I'm just not interested in doing it. That's bubbling away nicely. Awesome. Okay, garlic. Uh-oh, we got sprouting garlic here. That's not good. I just bought this today. It's the time of year for that, though. Everything around here is sprouting. And if it's been sitting there a day or two, the grocery I go to probably goes through their stuff pretty quick, but it's probably sitting somewhere that gets enough sunlight too. So we'll use a decent amount of garlic here too. This is going to be for about a pound of ground pork. I don't know if I'm going to make that many actual wontons, but we'll come close. And it'll also work great if I want to be lazy about it the next day. I can just cook some rice and toss it with the rice. It'll be just as good. Without the thing is, I don't know if I really want to sit here and wrap wontons and have them sit around after I wrapped them. They're sort of something that's better done fresh. You can freeze them easily. That said, they're just not something that sits in the refrigerator very well. So it's either make it and freeze it, or make it and use it. Slice these each in half longwise. Try and remove that sprout growth, because even though that one was mostly white, they're going to be bitter, especially where they're green. So we want to remove that bitterness from our food. Last one. That's sort of a pain. These are all sort of get like half the garlic out of them this way too. So should probably keep a better eye on that this time of year if I can remember, which is my real issue. I can't remember shit. And so just going to give these a quick slice. Sit still, bowl. I will say that I sort of think of it as somewhat cheating tonight because I am using pre-made wonton wrappers. I have been and probably will give it a try here in the future of making my own. They're essentially the same as pasta, as lasagna noodles. They're, well, different flour and makeup of the actual dough, but you can literally use a pasta roller to make wontons. Okay, so we got garlic, we got ginger, we got onion, we got mushroom. What all else we looking for here and needing in this dish tonight? We got our canned tomato. I'm going to use some canned tomatoes with our another cheat or hack, or it's winter and tomatoes suck situation. Going to use canned tomatoes with our cabbage along with the onions and all the other yumminess here. Okay, so we're set with all of that. We need a little green onion too. We boiling over here, we're boiling over here. Let's turn this down a little bit. Don't want that. We want it cooking hot so that it cooks the beans, but we don't want it boiling like mad, because if you got all the beans moving around and rolling around, you're going to break all the skins. So, sort of this, you're fighting the, you need the temp low enough that they're not moving around a ton, but you want it up high enough that they actually cook quickly. Need the pork, need our green onions. So we're gonna save two of these guys for garnish with the soup. And the other two we're going to put in with the pork mixture. Just making sure these are cleaned up. These are not my favorite source for green onions, but they will do in a pinch. Give those a quick slice in half, and thin slice them, use all of them. Just using the greens, we're using all of it. Sure, Chinese style or Asian style here. They actually much prefer the whites to the greens compared to us wanting the greens. At least I think that's how I remember it as. It's the opposite. Americans like one, the Chinese like the other. Just like so many other things. Yeah, just getting going here with our fillings. Got beans bubbling away on the stove for with the soup. Got most of our veggies here cut. And we have a very hot pan here that I forgot I left on. So we're gonna cut the heat off on him and let him cool down a little bit before we start throwing stuff in there. Don't do that to your knife. It's horrible for your knife. I keep been in that habit the last week. Want to scrape your board, do it with something dull. Okay. Slightly more than a pound of pork here. By slightly, I mean 1.02 pounds. Oh, that stays there. Throw that blood and all in there. Got our green onions. We're going to take our mushrooms and our garlic. We're going to saute these up. We're going to do it in... Sorry for the screeching. Get ourselves a little saute pan going here, a little cast iron. And with sesame oil, since we got that kicking around, toasted sesame oil. Can already smell that. Love the smell of sesame oil or anything cooking. Thank you for the embers. Appreciate that. I'm doing this to, I'm going to cook the garlic now to make sure it all gets cooked and we get a little bit of that mellowed out a little bit. You know, raw garlic can be quite imposing. Show its mic so you can actually hear that. Thank you. After we get that garlic going for a little bit, we'll add our somewhat chopped oyster mushrooms. I didn't do a great job on chopping those up. Oh well. Gonna add a bit more regular oil because it's cheaper. And because mushrooms are gonna absorb oil. Oyster mushrooms will actually eat oil. So you're in essence half feeding them when you're trying to cook them. And a little bit of salt there. While those are gone, we'll keep going with our meat back here. Add our ginger in. Add a bit of soy sauce. Not too much. We don't want these things swimming, but you want it in there. We got a little hoisin sauce. Look at this guy's still got a plastic wrapper on him. Yep. Has not been tampered with. Best bottle opener ever found by man. Or at least by this man. They don't sell them anymore though. Probably because they'll break the bottle if you try them too hard. There's no real recipe to it. I've using general knowledge of making wontons in the past. I've done chicken wontons on stream in the past. Let's say 2 spoonfuls here. I'm not a huge hoisin sauce fan, so one of those things is a little too potent for my style. Okay, we don't need to cook the crap out of these things. We're just making sure that they're not raw before they go in with the mix. I'm semi-retired chef. I've been running a small personal business out of the farmers markets here in Sonoma County for the last 5 years, making products based off what the farmers are bringing to market. I have a 20-foot mobile kitchen. I've worked in kitchens all over the place and in all sorts of types of kitchens, but right now I don't know that chef necessarily appropriately fits me right this exact moment. Because I'm not professionally working as a chef right now. But I've worked in resorts, I've worked in sports clubs, I've worked in West Hollywood wine bars and fancy restaurants. I've staged at some really fancy restaurants. But right now I'm just sort of streaming, enjoying life. So let's set this aside and allow this to relax and get to know itself here for about 20 minutes here, and we'll move on to working on building our base for our suit. Yeah, it's not really the grind that's burning me out. It's more the situation that I'm in the location. I love living in Sonoma County. I don't really want to move out of Sonoma County. But the real estate situation has made it so that the labor situation here is basically non-existent. It is very hard to get labor to work in kitchens, front of the house. They're just not making enough to stay in town. And so the only real labor in town is like the kids that are growing up around here. We don't really have I hate to say it, but low income workforce. We don't have a lot of we don't have a ton of restaurants, and since the wildfires in the last 3 years here, a lot of the fancy restaurants are closing too because the tourism's died in the last 3 years. Hello, Archibot. Thanks for hosting. Okay, big pan back on the flame. We're heating up the small guy in back to get rid of all the moisture in the pan so it doesn't rust at all. Sorry for screeches. Apologize if there's any headphone users out there. Okay. Well, almost running out of my sunflower oil. Oh, I used all the garlic for the wontons. Yeah, they've been rather nuts. I was evacuated in October. And while the Paradise Fire was really nowhere near Sonoma, we had over a week where we were basically forced to stay indoors from all the smoke from it. I mean, both of these fires, both the Kincaid and the Tubbs fire, either did or were threatening to jump the 101 freeway, which, I mean, it's not like they're going under underpasses or anything. They're jumping a freeway. The Tubbs fire went, New York Times made a great graphic of it, of moving like something like 50 miles in 12 hours as it started. It is ridiculously fast. Luckily, where I live, which is West County, Sonoma, Sebastopol, West County, Sonoma, itself hasn't had a forest fire, which is both good and bad, since the 1940s. So it's good in the sense that, you know, statistically we're a bit safer location, but it also means that it hasn't burned in years and years and years, and so that there's lots and lots of lovely kindling for any fire that does want to start up. Yeah, it's this last one. I'm royally pissed at PG&E. PG&E needs to just be dissolved and auctioned off to the highest bidder. That business needs to stop existing. The idea that they literally shut my power off when I was in the middle of an evacuation. I mean, what mindset do they have with that? I mean, how the fuck are people supposed to know to evacuate if you turn off the power? But that's an entirely different animal. And something I don't really have any control over. Yay, smoke! Oh yeah, California does a whole bunch of stuff to help regulate fires, and the problem or benefit with California is that that pan is really hot right now. We have roughly 30% of the U.S., 30% of the U.S. population living in California. And on top of that, I think it's 48.5% of the state. 48.5% of our land, 48% something, is owned by the federal government. It's not land that people are living on. It's not. So it's all natural parks and natural rangeland, and things along that line. So I mean, the idea of Trump saying that you just need to mow our lawn is fucking ridiculous. But yeah, they do all sorts of things, and I know that they were just posting Cal Fire just bought, I think it was 8 new helicopters. Cal Fire, if you look on Wikipedia, Cal Fire, I mean, they've got an arsenal of planes and helicopters and And what largely happens with these wildfires is, I mean, they basically just try and keep it off of the property that they're worried about, and they just try and push it into the national parks. And so, I mean, usually after the first 24 or 48 hours, there's not that much of an issue unless there's some wacky weather going on. It's really just that first initial rush, especially if it's a really windy nighttime or something like that. The idea that you're rallying troops to deal with this, they just can't deal with it. And when you're dealing with a really windy situation, you're dealing with, I mean, I live in Sebastopol, which is a good 15, 20-minute drive from the 101 where the fire was. And so, but when the Tubbs fire came through, I literally was having ash in my yard that was like that. You know, it was like inches large pieces of ash. So, I mean, they're dealing with a front that's not just miles long, they're dealing with a front that's miles wide, because you'll have spot fires out miles, quarter mile. And like I said, both of these fires barely crossed, Tubbs barely crossed 101, and Kincaid didn't pass 101, and I got evacuated. That's how, I mean, I just don't really know how they could contain it if they want to contain these fires. It's the same thing with, I feel horrible for all the people out in Australia. I mean, those fires are even more nuts than this. I got a can of diced tomatoes, fire roasted diced tomatoes. Yeah. Add a bit of salt here. I might add a little bit of, I ferment garlic and honey. I do that every, usually takes me about 6 months to go through a batch of it. But it's very helpful stuff, and this is like mostly honey, and it's still that loose. You can put the garlic in the honey, and then keep it in an anaerobic environment. You do want to add a little bit of apple cider vinegar, just to make sure your pH is above botulism worries. But then it works great. You have garlic flavored honey for on your pizza crusts and all sorts of other things you want to add that flavor in. Or if you want to use honey for something savory and add a little bit of, just a slight hint of funk to it. It's good stuff. Good stuff. There's a great video about it. Brad from Bon Appetit did a great video on making it. Yeah, it's all a toss-up. I mean, whether you want to deal with hurricanes or tornadoes or earthquakes, and now earthquakes seem to be happening on a greater percentage of the U.S. I want to say Oklahoma, somewhere out east had a 5 or 6 this year. I mean, it didn't cause any major damage because we have great housing codes these days, but yeah, I've got family in the south that deal with the hurricanes, and that's always fun because no one knows where anyone else is. I mean, families know where the families are, but all your local people are all, you know, off at such and such relative. So now that we got most of this cooked down nicely, we're going to pull this out of the pan. Kill the heat for a moment. Not the greatest spoon for scooping out of this thing. I don't know that I love these. I bought these OXO wooden spoons to replace my old guys, because my old guys were definitely past due, and don't know that I'm loving them. I like the nice thick handles on them, but the scoop, the actual spoon, ain't quite as nice. Doesn't scoop great, doesn't get corners perfect. So with our semi-dirty pan here, add a bit more oil, turn the heat back on. Add the last of our oil. And cabbage, mushrooms first. We're going to need more oil than that because of these mushrooms. So I'm going to grab a bit of the cheap canola. But then again, you can only, I mean, with the hurricanes too, a lot of the time you don't really know, they're getting a lot better at it, but you don't really know where they're going to land. And so you get so many people that are evacuated, much more than usually what's necessary, which it's good for safety, but it's got to be annoying to disrupt that many people's lives. Now we're at our cabbage in here. Bit of salt. Some black pepper. I just realized I got my watch on. I'm not supposed to have my watch on when I'm cooking. even though it's waterproof. Okay, salt, pepper, MSG. That's how I felt, and when I was evacuated in October, I was really only evacuated for one day. Well, it was a mandatory evacuation for one day and a suggested evacuation for the next 2 days, I think it was. But I came back that next night and preferred to sleep in my own bed rather than shelter or something else. I sort of out here on my own. I have some friends and stuff like that, but I'd much rather not call on them for that sort of a thing. Unless I need to. I actually had one friend from San Francisco tell me to come on down and hang out and we'll chill out in the hotel and get drunk. And I was like, no thank you. Mostly because I can't stand driving in San Francisco. I drive a truck, which trucks in San Francisco really just don't mix. The lanes are so narrow, there's so much parallel parking, there's so much, it's just a horrible city to get around in with a car. Happy to go to San Francisco, just don't make me drive. I'd be more happy to go there and use the bus or the trolleys or it's actually been almost a year since I've actually bothered driving to San Francisco. So if you stick with the green cabbage, this soup is going to look a lot fresher and a lot more spring-like. I'm using the purple cabbage because the whole idea of me making the soup today is I'm using up the cabbage. But if you're going for that fresh look with the soup, you want to add a little parsley. I'm not going to add any parsley. I'm using green onion instead of parsley. And stick with the green cabbage because it'll look lighter, it'll look fresher. So we're trying to break down most of the moisture out of the cabbage, make it nice and soft. We can actually get going here with doing our wontons while that's working. So like I said, I'm cheating. I'm using pre-made wonton wraps. So I'll probably take on that challenge someday in the future. We'll break up our wraps here a little bit. Let's see how this, my mom gave me, she probably got them for like $1 or something. Let's see how these things work. She gave me these for the holidays. Let's see if this even works. A little. Maybe. Let's see, which spoon do I want to use for filling these? Let's go with try one of these. old school cheapo metal spoon. Wetting one edge of the wonton wrapper. I don't know if it's going to do it. Looks like it might have been, that was a bit too heavy for this apparently. It smells like cabbage. Yeah, that was a bit much. Let's try doing that again with a little bit less. Probably gonna just do them by hand here because it's sort of a cutesy little thing, but it's almost one of those things where it's more work to do it this way than it is to just do it by hand. So a little bit less in this one. A bit longer there. The answer is it doesn't work great. So I'm just going to do them by hand here. We'll give the molds another try here with, we'll do mini hand pies or something someday. See if we can't use these for that. They're a little bit small for the rounds that these are cut. And so combination, if you don't have it on there perfectly, it's not going to crisp or crimp. So, handheld way. Usually takes me 5 or 10 to get going, but then you just slowly move your way down. Make sure it's nicely sealed all the way around, and there you go. Need a place to put these, so we'll set up a hand with some parchment. Okay. I think we're good with our cabbage here for now. We'll add our other veggies back in. Gonna add a bit of smoked paprika, which give us a little bit more color, even though we got quite a bit from those tomatoes. And anything else here that I want to throw into that while we're at it? I think we'll leave it at that. Keep it somewhat simple. And we'll add our beans in. And these are chili beans with my pork stock that I made on stream the other week. The beans I soaked overnight and just started cooking on stock like first thing when my stream started. So we'll just let that simmer away here. I'll turn the heat down. while we finish our wontons. So how's everyone doing tonight? I did change things. I've always had loyalty points or points going in the background, but I've never had them going with my stream for the chat, and I did add those in this week. We've got this availability now. Touch my hair, wash my hands. I'm just going to give them a quick boil, but you can do whichever way you choose. There's plenty of ways to cook wontons. I am going to boil them in separate clean water so that the starch doesn't gum up my soup, but you could just throw them right in the soup if you're not worried about clouding up your soup at all. Tastes just as good. Or you can give them a pan sear. What I do suggest is from this point, where I am right here with these guys that are sitting in the pan, you do either want to use them tonight, or you want to freeze them right away. You can just leave them on the pan, throw them in the freezer, and then once they're frozen through, you can throw them in a bag. And they'll hold great in the freezer, but they're not, I wouldn't think they're refrigerator friendly. So. Refrigerator, I think the dough wraps will get too moist and just basically dissolve. But since we are working with raw meat, we do want to make sure that we are cooking them long enough that our small little package here is fully cooked. But I'm not one to fuss over a little bit of medium rare pork because I have well-sourced pork and there's not that much trichinosis going around these days, especially with in the likelihood you'll get trichinosis from a pasture-raised animal is much less because, well, I'll let you study what trichinosis is and how they get it. I'm not very fast at things like this. I've never been very fast at repetitive things. I'm good at doing repetitive things because I don't mind doing them. I fall into a pattern pretty easily, but never been fast. Never been fast as much as I am. Switch mics back over here so you can actually hear what I'm saying again. The pan isn't making a bunch of noise anymore. And like I said, you don't have to do all this with wontons. If you only want to do a couple of them for the night, like I'm doing here, I'm only going to probably fill out the second row. You can throw the rest of this in rice or all sorts of things you could do with this filling mixture. I mean, it's pretty much your standard. It's what my Cuisines of Asia instructor used to say about Chinese food. Everything with GGS, ginger, green onion, and scallions, and that's what you got here. You got a little soy sauce, a little hoisin, ginger, green onion, and garlic, some pork. So. Ooh. You also want to keep these guys somewhat moist. I'm leaving it in the bag here. I'm not trying to really promote whoever it is that made these, but you want to keep them high moisture situation. So either wet towel over the top, or in the case here, leaving them pretty much still in the plastic bag. They hold pretty well in the refrigerator, though. I mean, they're just a simple dough. Like I said, I gotta do them on stream one of these days, but it's pretty simple dough. These guys are sort of... I've got some stories. These can be a little bit tedious, yeah. They're not that bad, though, because they're not difficult. I've done some things for catering and stuff like that that are just not just tedious, but are just ridiculous hard. The thing that immediately came to mind when you said that was when I worked at a resort in Phoenix. they had a special dinner. I forget what the special dinner was for, but it was for 800 people. So it was not a small affair. And our executive chef, our executive banquet chef at the time, had the brilliant plan of serving lasagna in a pouch. And so we had to bake lasagna, or par-bake lasagna. It's a bit too much. Par-bake lasagna, and then cut it into squares, and then wrap it in a sheet of pasta. And that wasn't so hard. The hard part came when you then took a poached leek, or a poached scallion, and used that to tie a bow to close the pouch. And so, I mean, if you ever dealt with, like one of these guys when they've already been cooked and they're soft and soggy and slippery, and tried to tie a bow tie with them, we had to do 800 of them. That dinner was a disaster. The other part to that was you had the lasagna packet, and then you had another dish that they did much more often, but for some reason it just didn't turn out this time, were potato baskets, which you basically make potato hay or finely shred potato and throw it between two fryer baskets and throw it in the fryer. Make a nice little package to throw some, I think we were throwing squash or something in the baskets. So it was a little basket of like fried potatoes with some squash sliced in it. They did some really cool decoration techniques when I was there. Their salads were always awesome. They're pretty much standard salad. Even their run-of-the-mill on the plate salad was, what they would do is they thin slice long cucumbers. So you have these sheets of cucumber, and then they'd line up a row of different lettuces, the different boxes, like 4 or 5 or 6 different types of, just basic lettuces, like your mesclun mixed lettuces. You grab one of each of them, you line them all up in a nice packed group, so they're all standing nice in the same row, and then you take a cucumber and wrap it around and turn it into like a little tree. We'd stand them up on plates. But it also worked great for banquets because you could do them ahead of time and throw them in a hotel pan, and then just take them from a hotel pan and put them on a plate. Boom, 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 boom. Let's give our soup a taste here, see how we're doing. It's got to be tasting somewhat okay with all that pork stock in there. Otherwise, a completely vegan soup. You could switch out for your favorite veggie, fish, or meat type of your choice, and have it how you like. Tasty. I don't think it needs too much more salt or anything. We're just gonna let that keep going. And so let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So we got 16 of these guys. 16 is probably enough for me. I can live with 16. So I can live with 16. So we'll give these a wrap up and throw these back in the fridge. This will save for later. Like I said, I can throw it with rice, which is what I'll probably do. Dish would also be great with some bacon in there, but I've used quite a bit of bacon on stream. I know bacon makes any stream better, but that we could maybe live without it for once. So let's get some water going, so we have something to boil these guys in. And then we'll probably be pretty much done here. It'll take me a minute here to get the water boiling. Thank you for the sparks as well, Mr. Tags. Just actually pulled up my dashboard. I don't get to actually see the sparks a lot of the time. Streamlabs needs to up its game with Mixer here. Come on, Logitech. If you're not following the news, Logitech recently bought Streamlabs. Of course, Twitch also made some sort of partnership with OBS. So chop up our green onion while we're waiting here. Need to find myself a sort of like, maybe I should start doing whittling again. Not whittling, but like carving. Need a sort of like hobby or a long-term project to work on or something like that when I've just got stuff rolling in the oven, because it's sort of like the hard problem of doing a cooking stream is when, you know, you've done everything and it's taking you 15-20 minutes, but it's just chilling in the oven now for 2 hours. Well, what do you do now? Sort of tried to combat that by trying to mix projects that take a bit of prep work with ones that take a fair amount of oven work, but it doesn't quite always work out that way, especially when I'm The way I'm sort of setting up to do my streaming here, I'm making regular streams several times a week. Half of the time, I'm not even really planning things before the head. Though, give myself a little promo. I did add a ton of things here for like the next 2 weeks. Going to be doing duck confit and going to be doing dinner with the duck confit. We got plans for the next show. So take a look at my info page down there below the stream there if you want to see what I'm doing here the next couple of days or the next week or two. I do try to keep a couple of things on the list there of upcoming things, but I also try to leave myself a little flexibility myself to have a little in-the-moment creativity at home or flexibility to use up products that I have chilling in the fridge, like today with the cabbage soup. Of course, it's also sort of forced me, which is a good thing. Sort of the whole point of doing streaming for me is forcing me to keep a couple of timelines and force myself to continue to. I mean, I've always been, well, at least the last 10 years or so, I've always been cooking a couple big meals a week and using that as my main food. Maybe with a breakfast or something else small. But the streaming sort of forces me to keep that habit, which is good because it keeps me from eating the worst stuff. Add a little. As I was saying before, these wonton wrappers they're pretty close to pasta dough. So I'm gonna salt my water here too. Using the cheap kosher salt. I try to keep nice kosher salt. I use real salt or the expensive stuff for the small pinches here and there. But I keep around Morton kosher and I guess if I needed to, I could grind down my block here. Never really. I've tried using that once or twice for cooking, and I haven't really. I tried it once with, I think it was with shrimp, and whatever it was, it turned it out way too salty. So I've sort of. I like the novelty of it, but it's sort of become my salt stand, is my salt block. Haven't tried doing a pasta or a pizza on it, so that's maybe something we'll try here in the future. It'd probably fit pretty well on my little grill too. I'd be worried my grill heat would probably break it. Gonna be doing some grilling this summer. I got a small little teppanyaki grill, and can hook up. I figured out how I can hook up my cell phone for a fourth camera here, but it takes a bit of work. I'm not going to do that on a regular basis, but you can do some grilling outside if do a couple of special shows doing that. Going to be doing orange sherbet next on Sunday. The cinnamon rolls turned out amazing. Still got those kicking around. I haven't ate all of those, obviously, at this point. Be done the heart attack at this point if I had gone through all those. And I still got 3 or 4 more still chilling in the freezer to like can bake at a later date. But figure it's citrus season. Love making sorbets or sherbets, and maybe do that. Maybe add a little vanilla. I don't know how I want to do it. Whether I want to serve it with some sweet cream or some vanilla on the side, or just orange with a little vanilla in there. That's a much better way of using your knife as a moving on. If you noticed, before I was saying you don't want to scrape your blade across that. That's going to dull your edge really quickly. But it is okay to do that. You just got to be careful not to cut your hand doing it. So we got our garnish. We got soup bowl, and we're just waiting on being able to boil those guys. Still working on trying to remember what cameras are up or how it's set up, or I spent Friday's stream a good portion of it like that. But I was doing stuff on the second stove over here, and I didn't realize that I had it to my zoomed in version. I keep forgetting to switch the mics too between the front and the back. Something, things I'll learn here with doing a little bit more streaming, even though I've been at it now for 6-9 months. Something like that. Now we have the food and drink channel, which it seems to have brought a bunch of people back from doing web show and other things, which I'm sure people get a lot more viewers on web show, but I think food and drink is a much better category for us. We can get people coming over here, it'd be much better for us. We've had the brewers showing up in the morning now, which is nice. I've been hosting them. Yeah, I've toyed around with a lapel mic too, but I've been having echo issues with it and dealing with especially when I've done stock on stream a couple of times, which are 5, 6, 7, 8, 10-hour streams. I mean, I may not be sitting here doing it, but hanging out and chatting that whole time. But I've got my stream on with it bubbling away. It just doesn't last. It lasts for me maybe 3 or 4 hours before it starts cutting on me, and I just don't think that's feasible long term. But we'll see. I also want to get some earbuds or something like that. I don't want to sit here with a pair of headphones on. I don't want to sit here cooking But I wouldn't mind having an earbud in one ear so that I could hear what's going on from my audio going out. It took me a good 5 or 6 months to figure out the filters on the microphones just to get rid of the noise from my fans. I'd also love to find audio software if it's out there so that I could have both of my mics going, but you get into echo issues with that because of the difference in locations. Yeah, it'd be nice to have someone to sit there and run my Steam Deck for me. Or Stream Deck. My Steam Deck. Doing a no alcohol stream tonight. I often critique or complain or talk about wines or make mixed drinks here on stream as well, which is why I stream with an 18 plus category. I swear a little bit, but not enough to be really worried about that. So, maybe here on Sunday I'll find something to drink. I've been hitting up the aspirin tonight, and aspirin and drinking just don't mix. I also try to do at least one stream a week where I'm not doing any drinking at all, which, you know, even though I'm only streaming 3 days a week and I don't really drink when I'm not streaming that much, I don't want to give the impression that I drink all the time by drinking all the time on stream. Come on, water. You're starting to get there. Starting to get there. Pull out my handy dandy spider here for our wontons. All right, Miss Tags, thanks for stopping by. Love that you hosted me tonight. Hope you all have a great evening. I thought you were streaming tonight. I thought you said you were going to do something. Did you do that earlier or something? But we're pretty much done here, anyways. Just gonna boil these guys off, which you can see, and then we'll mix those with the soup for the final picture. So. Actually, probably just easy enough to look at my Instagram there and see what I post there in a couple hours, or an hour or so. Yeah, that's life. But have a great one. Thanks for stopping by. Let's see how these beans are doing. I didn't try any of the beans. Want to make sure those are cooked through. But these guys are a little bit more forgiving than the chickpeas, I think. Those are there. They'll be better tomorrow, but they're there now. This soup is one, like mini soups, this soup's going to probably be better reheated the next day. But it's going to be awesome tonight, too. Let's unzoom our stove so that, oh, oops. Didn't mean to do that to you. Just changing around one of my scenes here so you can see what I'm doing here a little bit better when I go to boil these. There we go. So we're almost there with this. This is almost to a boil there. As I was saying earlier, you can, I mean, freezing these guys freeze great. While it takes a little while to do them up, if you got a day, you've got a Sunday, you want to do up, a couple hundred of them, you get a couple people over, you get the kids involved, or something along that line. You go through a couple of dozen of them in one deal. You got them in the freezer for a couple of months, or a week or two, or however fast you go through them. But they're one of those great meals that you can do, even though they take a while to prep. You can do a ton of them ahead of time and have them ready for you whenever you want to do them. Let's give this water one last turn. I'm turning on here to turning the water like this so that, because the heat isn't even from the fire, so change our hot points in the water so that it heats thoroughly quicker. At least that's my mentality. Though it is dangerous moving around that, or I do it with oil, or which is even more dangerous. So be careful moving around hot pans. Okay, gonna do about I think I'm gonna drop in about 8 of these at a time here. Maybe a bit much. I was thinking more like maybe 6, but we got 16 here, so 8's a good half measure. We're gonna let these sit in there for a minute. Make sure that pork gets all nice and cooked through, because if you remember, that pork that's inside all these wontons is still raw. Drop these on the plate. I'm going to cook the other batch of these because, like I said, I don't think these are going to be very refrigerator friendly as they are right now. I think I'd much rather cook them and eat them as leftovers cooked and just reheat them, then, like the other alternative I said, these are great for freezing. So. Hit this with just a hint of salt. Especially if you're making your own wrappers, you definitely want to add a little salt now, just to get, because I mean you're using probably nicer flour than I've got here. But you want to taste the whole package. There you go. There's a quote. Gonna cut the heat on our cabbage soup here just so that I can put it away in the fridge at some point this evening. And these guys are looking there. Ooh, we have a burst one. Stayed together nicely still though. That's good. Okay. And like pasta water, that water is great for feeding your plants. It's got tons of starch in it. Your plants will love it. Don't throw it down the drain. Use it. Don't pour it on your plants while it's hot. I can just see someone now. But you told me to pour it on my plants. Take some of our cabbage soup there with beans and all sorts of veggies and our pork stock in the background. This was the wrong spoon. This is what I needed. Yeah. Cabbage soup. Little green onion. Throw up a couple of these puppies on there. A few scallions, and just to finish the look, we'll do drizzle of soy sauce over our wontons. And because I have them to use, a few sesame seeds. I've tried sesame seeds before in wontons. I did them before when I did the chicken wontons. I don't recommend it. I don't like the texture in there myself. The popping of the seeds inside of the pack, it just sort of ruins the whole wonton effect. So we got our oven off, and turn our fan on low, leave our light on. Take a photo of our lovely dinner this evening, and we'll call it a stream. Ooh. There we go. All right, everyone. Thank you so much for joining me this evening. Gonna go and enjoy this soup. I'm very happy with how the soup turned out. Very happy with how the wontons turned out. Thanks for the follows. Thanks for the hosts. Thanks for the embers and sparks. And I hope you all have a lovely evening. Let me check. I don't think we got anyone else in food and drink this evening. Let's see if there's someone else I can find to drop you guys off with. Here, let's maximize mixer so that I get to actually see what's going on here. And I think we're gonna call it a night there. Thank you guys all for joining me this evening, and I hope you have a lovely night.